haven't met yet, it's nice to meet you. My name is Kelly Lehman. I'm the owner of Cranberry Fields Flower Farm here in Cranberry, New Jersey, and I love giving you guys fun, free flower tips. So please feel free to subscribe to this YouTube channel and hit that bell notification so you know whenever I post another fun, free flower tip video. I wanted to show you one of my garden blunders. So it's really important when you plant new hydrangeas that you keep up with the watering because they're fragile. You know, they still need to get established. They need to have their root system stretch out, and they need to have enough hydration to do that. So Shell and I and the kids went away, and I did not keep up on the watering. We had a couple 95-degree days when we were gone, and this is what some of these new hydrangeas look like. But I'm not too worried because I know that they are tough plants. But what I am going to do is deadhead off all of these dead brown blooms. I'm going to go down to that fresh set of leaves. I'm going to give it a clip. And I know that these leaves don't look very good right now, but they're going to come back. I actually just gave it like a big shot of water right now. And within a couple hours, I'm hopeful that these green leaves are going to come back. But in the meantime, I don't want this plant to have to worry about supporting these crispy brown blooms that shouldn't be here, but they are. So I'm just going to clip them off and let that plant then have that extra energy to work on getting those roots going and to fluff those green leaves back up and to start feeding itself better. So let's go down here and clip it off. Clip it off. I'm going to get rid of all these. You never want to have any kind of brown leaves or brown blooms back in the garden. And I want to leave as many of those green leaves in place so that the plant can continue to feed itself. Okay, but some of these leaves are looking a little brown, so I'm going to get rid of some of these diseased leaves. Let me go down to a healthy set of leaves. We're going to come back and we'll check on this one in a couple weeks, and I'll let you see how that turns out. So, garden blender. Happens to the best of us. I wanted to show you one of my hydrangeas that I think is root bound. And the reason why I think this hydrangea over here is a little bit root bound is because the ones next to it, I've got a whole slew of proven winners hydrangeas here. And they're all looking good, but I think that I let this one sit a little too long in this pot. I should have transplanted it because it's been here for a while. I bought it a while ago, and I should have transplanted it after a few weeks because it seems like the roots got too large for the pot. And the reason why I think that is because this guy looks like he's totally dehydrated, but yet he's had the same outdoor conditions as everybody else. So he's gotten the same amount of rain, the same amount of water. But what I'm finding is that when I add water, I just tried watering this plant myself, these roots down here are super, super tight and they were super dry. This is what happens to the roots. This plant was just too big for this pot. I should have planted it right when I got it, and I did not. And so these roots kept on growing, and what's happening now is it's not allowing the water to get into the plant. And the same thing with the top. All these roots are kind of like mangled up here. So what I need to do is kind of tease the plant gently with my fingers, and as I'm breaking that up, you can see that there's all like soil past that little root layer. And the soil here is like really, really dry. So even though it rained last night, even though I watered it, the rain is almost like bouncing off of all of these roots and just trickling down. And then it was exiting the holes in the bottom of the pot. And the plant was never really receiving the water that it needed. So you really have to make sure that your potted plants don't get root bound, because then they will wind up, not getting that water that they need. And when you're buying plants from the store, make sure that you plant them in the ground as soon as possible. Because listen, plants are going to continue to grow, and they could wind up having this issue if you don't get them in the ground fast enough. So a simple fix to this now is I'm going to plant this gal in the ground. I'm going to just loosen up all of her roots. I'm going to give it a good little massage. I'm going to kind of tease the roots, especially on the bottom, because they're root bound even on the bottom. So I'm just kind of softening up all those roots. I'm kind of breaking through a bit, and I'm going to do the same thing with the top. I'm actually going to take this guy inside right now, and I'm going to soak it in a bucket of water just to kind of give it a little kickstart, because I could tell he's really, really dry. Breaking up some of those roots very gently, and I'm going to do this at the top of the plant, and I'm also going to break up the root system on the very bottom of the plant. Don't forget to do the bottom. And now it's almost completely submerged, and when it's submerged, I can kind of work on some of those top roots too, because the roots actually are causing a problem where the rain can't get through the top of the plant, which is really, a bad thing. Okay, now I feel like there's a lot of moisture that broke through those roots. Now, I don't want to soak it too long because I don't want to give this plant root rot. You don't want your hydrangeas to ever sit in water for a long time because then those roots get very squishy. They get something called root rot. There's like root damage, and then that stops the plant from absorbing the water that it needs. Once you've hydrated those potted hydrangeas, you've broken up the roots, it's a really good idea to put them in the ground in a place where they'll be the happiest. You know, you can kind of consult those tags on the plant to make sure that it's getting the proper amount of sunlight, and just keep up with the watering because those plants take a while to get their roots established. And make sure when you put them in the ground, they have at least 6 weeks before the first ground freeze so that those roots have a chance to get established. Some Flower Tribe members have asked me what to do about their plants that they think are dying that look like this. These are my Annabelle Hydrangeas at the end of the season. We're in October, and they're actually not dying. They're just going dormant. So if your Annabelle Hydrangeas or your Incredible or your Smooth Hydrangeas, even your Mop Head Hydrangeas, if they look like this, chances are it's just because they're getting dormant. They're getting ready to kind of go to sleep for the season. And what you could do is just kind of like give these crispy blooms like just a little deadhead off. You don't want to do any kind of heavy pruning this time of year, especially on mop head hydrangeas, because you can cut off next year's blooms. And if you do a heavy pruning to any of your hydrangeas at this time of year, you may encourage a growth spurt, which is something that you don't want to do. So you could basically just kind of like snip off some of these, you know, dried up flower blooms. I leave a lot of the healthier blooms in place. Ones that look like this, because they'll kind of dry out to a much prettier version, you know, as opposed to these that got super dried out. And then sometimes when these dry out, they look really beautiful when there's snow on top of them for some beautiful winter interest in your winter garden. So don't worry if your plants once again kind of look like this, but there's still a lot of green leaves. There's some green blooms, but you do have some of these like crispy you know, blooms that are on them. It probably just means that it's the end of the season and they just got a little bit too much sun. But there's also going to be a lot of leaf spots on it because temperatures are dropping, and they should be fine. This is what some of my endless summer leaves look like at this time of year. And once again, it's just because there's a lot of moisture on the leaves some nights, and the temperatures have been dropping, and sometimes it just gives them some of this leaf spot. But it doesn't mean that your plant is dying, so I wouldn't worry too much. If you're really concerned and if your leaves are really, really brown, you can always take it to a local garden center and ask them if there's something more going on than just the plant going dormant. Perhaps there is some sort of like a fungal issue that you might want to treat. But for the most part, these brown spots that come in at the, you know, like in fall, I just kind of leave my plant alone. I'll cut off some of the major ones, and I'll remove these leaves to make sure that I don't get any of these fungal spores mixed in with, you know, the rest of the garden. But for the most part, they're just going to go dormant for the rest of the winter. In a few weeks, I'm going to come back out to my garden. Most of these leaves will have dropped to the base of the plant, and at that point, I will remove them because I don't want to have, once again, those fungal spores mixed in with the mulch of the garden. So I'll wait till this kind of drops a lot of its leaves. I'll just kind of scoop them up from the base of the plant, remove them, put them in the garbage, and then I'll be pretty much good to go. And guys, even at this point, I'm seeing like a little bit of powdery mildew. Once again, as long as it's not taking over the entire plant and I still have green leaves and the bulk of the plant looks okay, I'm just going to kind of leave well enough alone. I'm going to leave them be and then just collect those leaves as they fall in a few weeks. This is what the endless summer look like in my garden in the summer. And these plants are deciduous, which means that their leaves are going to probably drop off. They're going to go dormant, but they will come back the following season. Just make sure you don't prune them back this time of year, or you'll be cutting off next year's blooms. Oh, did you hear that bird? Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up and give me a comment. If you have any garden questions, I would appreciate them, because most of my garden videos are based on the Flower Tribe's questions. And please feel free to come say hi to us over on my Instagram page. It's called Cranberry Fields. And also please say hi to us on my Kelly Lehman's Flower Tribe Facebook group, because there's thousands of gardeners from all over the world, and they're asking and answering loads of garden questions over there. And please check out my new podcast. I will put all of these in descriptions below. And also please check out my online flower courses. And please let me know where you're viewing this from in this great, big, beautiful world. I love to see how our flower tribe is growing around the globe each week. And I will see you in the next video.